Hello, everybody. My name is Laura Kelly, and this is Kerry Smith. We have set up a business called EMF-X 5G Solutions.ie, an Irish website selling EMF protection devices. Kerry has already been running this business for the last 7 years in Canada, and now we are focusing on selling them on the Irish market. So I just introduce you to Kerry. Hi, Kerry.
Hi, Laura. How are you today?
Good, thank you. Kerry is in Vancouver.
Yes.
Today we're going. Sorry, Kerry.
Sorry to interrupt you, but I was just going to say, through the magic of technology, we're able to do this with you in Ireland and me in Vancouver in Canada. It's about 7,000 kilometers away, almost 8,000 kilometers. And the beautiful thing is because both of our devices are harmonized, this video presentation is also harmonized, so the viewers will get benefit from watching it.
Great. An added bonus. Harmonize your life is a tagline, as you can see behind us on the posters of our business and the products. So today we're just going to cover 3 areas in the talk. So the first thing is harmonize your life. So what does that mean? What are we made up of, and how does nature and our bodies connect to nature and the world around us and the frequencies that are given off by all the devices that we're using nowadays? So Kerry's just going to talk a bit about that, about our body's frequencies, then the frequencies that the EMF radiation is emitting, leading into talking about then secondly 5G and what frequencies that's emitted at, and why 5G is a concern today and why we are concerned about transmuting the deleterious effects of it. And the third thing we do is just briefly go through the 3 products Kerry has developed, what they are, what they can be used for, and a little bit about how they were designed and how they work. So I'll start and hand over to Kerry just to talk first of all about not transmuting, but harmonizing your life. What does harmony mean, disharmony, and what are frequencies we're made up of, and how that connects to EMF radiation. So over to you, Kerry.
Yes, so we are electrical beings. We have low voltage, very low voltage, but we are electrical beings. And as Tesla talked about, he said everything in our experience is vibration. So it's all energy of different types. So we have caloric energy, and then we have electromagnetic energy, and so on. And so the thing is that natural electromagnetic frequencies, or EMFs, are more or less harmless to us unless you get struck by lightning. But what's happened is, starting with the electrification of our world, we've brought in these other frequencies which are not natural, and they are disharmonious. And so there was a lot of controversy about how many hertz that the electricity in your house should be going, and so on. And we run it at about 60 hertz. Different parts of our bodies are different hertzian frequencies, but how that interacts with us. And so people started getting sick when they started to electrify our world, our homes, and so on. And then what came in after that was radio, and then from radio, and then we had television and microwaves, and it went on from there. And so what happens is that these frequencies, they don't have a natural sinusoidal type of wave. They come in with square waves and sawtooth waves, and you could think of them, those frequencies, those wave patterns, as being noise, big noise. And that's why a lot of people often find that when they've been on their phone for very long, it starts to really bother them. It heats their heads. It does all sorts of things to them and makes them feel poorly. And in fact, our health globally, people's health has been declining quite a bit, and there are a lot of chronic diseases and so on, and there are many reasons for that, but also I firmly believe that a lot of that has to do with electromagnetic radiation and the pollution, what's called electrosmog. And so what we want to do is we want to transmute those harmful frequencies into frequencies that our bodies and other biological systems can handle. So biological system, trees, bees, cats, dogs, everything in nature is a biological system. And being affected negatively, there is a specific frequency in man-made electromagnetic radiation that's called vertical negative green. It's actually in the gray part of the color spectrum, but that frequency is a desiccating frequency. So it dries things out, it dries us out, it dries plant life out, it dries everything out. It can also cause, in the long term, it can cause cancers and other illnesses. So we want to eliminate that frequency from our devices and from our homes. And so the idea of harmonizing our lives is we have all this disharmony coming at us constantly. And so we want to change that so that our lives are harmonious and heal our homes instead of having all of the electronics and Wi-Fi routers and everything that are actually disturbing sleep and making us ill.
Okay. Okay. So nowadays, as you say, we are surrounded by the electro smog, the noise, and the latest generation of technology is the 5th generation, which is what 5G means. And this is specifically of concern to many people because we're working towards that now. All the telecommunications companies are organized for rolling this out. So for use on our telephones, our smartphones, our Wi-Fi routers, etc. And the products that you've designed are designed to help transmute that. But just to lead in, first of all, to say something more about 5G and what that is, Kerry.
Yes, so as you pointed out, 5G is the 5th generation of the internet. We started out, back with the earlier things, and that was all GSM, is what they call GSM. And don't ask what that acronym is, I can't remember it right now. And then we went on to LTE, which is what most of us are running now, is the LTE, and it's fairly fast, and we can download songs on the go. We can listen to music, we can make phone calls, we can see videos and that type of thing, and it's fairly fast. But then what they've come up with since then is the 5G, the 5th generation, and it's a whole different kettle of fish than what our bodies are used to and what we're used to and what the environment around us is used to. And 5G was originally developed as a weapon. Actually, it's a military grade weapon. And the idea was it's a non-lethal weapon, and it was developed for crowd control. So what it does is that it goes into millimeter waves. And so what we've had so far are wavelengths, radio wavelengths, and I can't remember the exact length of them, but they're about a meter. So the wave from peak to trough is about a meter long. And so that sort of passes right over us, passes by us. It doesn't actually interact into our bodies. With the millimeter waves, what they are is they're a millimeter or less long. And so it's a very, very, very high frequency that's going like this. And it's also pulsed. And so that comes at us, and it disorients us, and it causes disruption in our biological functions. One of the aspects of that, sorry, I just lost my thread there. So the millimeter waves are a very different kettle of fish, and it was originally developed by, some say it was the Israeli military, but I think that was probably in cahoots with the American military as a crowd control device. And what it can do is that when at certain frequencies, it doesn't penetrate deeply into the skin, but it goes, into the dermis at the very least. And what it does then is it starts heating the sweat glands and the sweat pores in our body. And so at a certain frequency, they can turn it up, and you will feel excruciating pain. You feel like you're boiling, you're on fire, and they can direct those to direct crowds. So it was originally developed for crowd control.
Okay, and but the frequency it's being transmitted at now, when it's being rolled out, won't necessarily be that high. We don't know when they're going to turn it up. So to begin with, what would be the frequency it would be rolled out at?
My understanding is that it's going to be at about 5 gigahertz, which is pretty high. Now, our original...
So 5 gigahertz.
5 gigahertz, yes.
But it's 60 gigahertz would be the concern if they go up to that level, isn't it?
Well, really, it's all a concern, but the 60 gigahertz definitely is a big
Yes.
concern, because then it is absolutely a weapon. And
Yeah,
what
but at that stage, it's weaponized at that frequency, whereas at the 5 gigahertz, it isn't necessarily. But
not,
it's still an issue because it's EMF radiation
yes,
uh, at a more powerful level that affects us and has deleterious effects. Yeah,
absolutely on our health, and so on.
yeah.
And all for the sake of downloading a video instead of it taking, a minute, it's going to take 20 seconds. It's absolutely ridiculous, and nobody really cares about that. So there's no real benefit to us when it really comes down to it. But what it does do is the Internet of Everything. They need a lot of bandwidth for that, and they can pack a lot of bandwidth in with the millimeter waves, and that's a big part of why they're doing that. Now, you mentioned 60 gigahertz, and so what the 5G presently is running at, well, it's designed to go from 5 gigahertz to 300 gigahertz, which is just crazy, massive frequencies. At 60 gigahertz, what happens is it starts to interact with our hemoglobin and the iron specifically, and it prevents binding of oxygen into our red blood cells, so that we can't actually oxygenate ourselves. And it also changes the molecular spin on the oxygen molecule. So not only does it stop the absorption of oxygen, but even if you did absorb it, it's spinning in the wrong direction. Your body can't utilize it. So that's when it really, really becomes a weapon. Um, and it's designed for that. But in the interim, it's more about crowd control. I just want to say too, to give an idea of what those frequencies mean. Are originally the phones that we would use, the cordless phones that we've been using for probably 30 up to 40 years even, they were about 700 millihertz. And so we're talking about thousands in that range. When you go into gigahertz, you're talking about billions. So it's actually a million times stronger than the cordless phones that we're used to.
Okay, yeah. Okay, and then the effect of that on systems, on biological systems, first of all, on the physical body, and then on nature. What is the effect of that, Kerry?
So it damages DNA. That's a known fact. There are thousands and thousands of studies that show that it does damage DNA, and that's an issue. A lot of people notice just with the phones that we've been using, which run at about 2.4 to 2.8 gigahertz, that there's heating in their hand and in their head and that type of thing. So there's a caloric thing there, and that starts to heat tissues. And we've all seen images of the difference between a baby's head with a cell phone and an adult's head with a cell phone, because our skulls are much thicker. But it actually heats the brain tissue and will damage the DNA and lead to the potential for cancers and so on down the road. Also,
Okay, so
there's
just in relation to the explanation, when you say caloric, what exactly do you mean?
heat. Yes, yes,
Caloric. So
yes,
it's like a calorific value, caloric.
yes, yes,
Does
yes.
it come from that word? Okay, yeah.
Yes, it comes from the Latin calor, which is heat. Yeah. So
Okay, okay. Okay, yeah. So there's that heating aspect. And so therefore the caloric effect has a desiccating result of dehydrating, drying out things.
yes, yes. So definitely there's a dehydration aspect of it. So it's affecting plant life, and it's affecting other animals. It's affecting birds and insects. It's affecting anything that's alive, really. And for us as well. And we are becoming dehydrated. And an interesting side note to that is that it's said that when we die at the end of our lives, it's not so much from old age, but it's from dehydration. We actually lose the ability to absorb water, and we actually dehydrate. And when we get to 60% hydration, we can't survive. So, ideally, we want to be 80, 90% hydrated. And that's what these devices and all of the EMFs are doing, is they're dehydrating us, and it's
Okay.
shortening our lifespans.
Okay. Okay, great. So just briefly to say, the website EMF-X5G Solutions.ie is where you can go to look at the products and offers. So we just show them to you now, the 3 products that Kerry's developed There's one for the telephone, one for the electricity system and the Wi-Fi router, and there's one for harmonizing water. So I don't know if you have them there near you, Kerry. I have the Telefy anyhow, which is this one, and it's the small square in the middle of the package there. If you can see that, that's the Telefy, which goes onto the back of your phone.
Yes.
And the Electrify is similar. It's just probably twice the size of the Telefy, and this is the one that goes onto your electric fuse board, your smart meter, or your Wi-Fi router. And then the Aquafy, Kerry may have one there to show you, is something that you can put under your jug of water, under a drink, under a glass of wine, on your body, because our body contains water to help with pain as well. I don't know if you can see that clearly, but it's a square product again, and there's a set of 3 there, 1, 2, 3, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So do you want to say something about the Telefy first of all, Kerry, and all products? Just a brief overview of how they were designed and how they work.
Yes. So originally, the first thing that came along was the Telefy, and that was it came after my own studies in biogeometry, which biogeometry is a new science by an Egyptian PhD, Dr. Ibrahim Karim. He's also an instructor at universities in Egypt as well. And he developed biogeometry over the course, it's now been almost 50 years ago that he started working on that. And so I took those studies because I was very interested. It's a very broad-ranging science, so it can be applied to anywhere from health issues to electromagnetism to nuclear radiation. All sorts of different things can be addressed by it. And during that time, the cell phones had been around for a little while. I personally didn't have one because I never ever wanted one, because I was aware of the dangers of them. And excuse me, I'm sorry, my phone is going off here. I thought I had it muted. Sorry about that. And so I didn't have one because I was aware of the dangers. I studied history and philosophy of science, and I just knew that there was a problem there, and I didn't really like them. But eventually we all succumbed. So I didn't know what to get as far as protection for my phone. There's so many different things out there. But when I studied biogeometry, I knew that that was the one. And so originally I developed the Telefy, and that was so to protect myself and others with on the phone. And then from that, shortly after that, they started in Canada and British Columbia, where I live, started rolling out the smart meters. And I knew that there was an issue with those as well. And after having studied those issues, I came up with the Electrify, which is to transmute all of the electricity in the house or in a building in general. And after a little while after that, people began to adopt them and use them. And somebody who was very pleased, well, everybody's always pleased with them, but somebody who traveled a lot for business and found that when she went to places where the water was fluoridated in particular, because we don't have fluoridated water in Vancouver. It's one of the only jurisdictions in North America and maybe even in the Western world that doesn't fluoridate the water. We're very lucky, part of the reason I live here. And so when she went traveling on business, she found that it was affecting her mentality. And that was confirmed by her naturopath. It was, she was having issues when she came back. So she asked me specifically if I could do something for water. And that was when I developed the Aquafy at her request. And since then, we've found it has some remarkable properties, which we can talk about if you want. But just about the Telefy, sorry, I call it Phi, I'm Canadian. So the Telefy, what it does is it doesn't block the radiation from your phone. It doesn't do anything like that. What it does is it transmutes it. And it's something that really struck me when people were saying that it blocked, their devices blocked or shielded the radiation. And I said, well, how will your phone work if you're blocking or shielding it? It couldn't possibly work because it works on electromagnetic radiation. So we needed to develop something that actually transmutes that radiation to make it harmless and even beneficial. And so that's what we've done with the telephy. And then that went on to the electrophy with the same principles, and then the aquaphy as well.
Okay, so do you want to just demonstrate, Kerry, what it looks like with the telephy on a smartphone and not on the smartphone? Kerry uses pendulums, which are designed to energetically pick up a vibration. They're not, you know, there's such a thing as mental dowsing, or there's such a thing as even people that have a facility to be water diviners, which my dad had, but I never learned it from him, although I might have it, which was basically going out with a forked stick around the land and waiting for it to shake somewhere to show you that there was water underneath the ground. So it's based on the same principle with the pendulums that Kerry has, which come from the School of Biogeometry and designed by Abraham Karim. So Kerry will show you, will demonstrate using a pendulum over a smartphone without the telephy, and with it.
Yes.
So if you go and show that there, Kerry.
Yes. And just to expand on what you were mentioning about the water dowsing or water witching, as some people call it, what it's about resonance. And so we go into resonance with the water. I'm a dowser for water as well. I'm quite good at that. And what it is that we actually go into resonance with the water. And it's the same thing with the electromagnetic frequencies. We go into resonance with them, but we absorb their harmful resonance, and that's why it's so bad for us. So we want to change that so that it becomes a beneficial frequency that we're resonating with. And this is one of the pendulums that Dr. Karim has designed, and it's a calibrated pendulum, so we can dial in any type of frequency here. And we use the color spectrum. It comes originally from the radiesthesists who were quite prominent up until about the 1950s, when the modern pharmacology took a hold. So they were medical radiesthesists, and they're also energetic radiesthesists. And so with these, what we can do is dial in specific frequencies. And I have dialed in here vertical negative green, which the reason for that is that the color spectrum is all the way around here. It starts at green and it goes through to blue, green, to blue and yellow, and around through red, and then in through violets and everything else. So the vertical negative green is the real issue with us. And this is a phone that I use in Ireland, but I've taken the telephy off just for demonstration purposes.
You're going to have to carry
yes,
both of
I'll
them.
pick that up. So what we want is that we don't want any vertical negative green coming from our devices. So it's on here, and what you'll see is I'm getting a clockwise spin around this, and so that indicates that there is a vertical negative green being emitted by that phone. And then there are other pendulums that I also use. They're all scientifically designed and calibrated, and I'll just show them to you quickly. So these are 3 more. I actually have 13 different pendulums that do 13 different things. And so you can see that there's quite a difference between the different pendulums, and they're all used for different purposes. So with this one specifically, what I can do is I can take my own personal wavelength. Everything and everybody has their own vibration, just it's as unique as a voice print or fingerprint. And so what I do is I take my own personal wavelength here, and I just adjust till I get that. What this is an antenna. So that shows there. Now, if I go...
Kerry, what does that show there?
What that is showing right now is that this is my personal frequency. Everything has a frequency, and
so it's showing that because it's moving clockwise.
Clockwise, yes. Now, if I look at you, it's not your frequency, so I'm not picking you up at all. But what we can do with this is we can determine whether things are beneficial for us or negative for us. And you'll notice that I'm talking the whole time I'm doing this, so I'm not mental dowsing. It's strictly measuring frequencies. That's all that we're doing here. So I can measure water, for instance, and the water is beneficial for me, that we can see that. And so then what I'll do is I'll take my phone that has no harmonizer on it at all, and what you'll see is that I'm getting an anti-clockwise spin, and that indicates that the phone is deleterious for me. So we don't want to use that. In contrast, this is my phone that I use in Canada. It has a telephy on it, and it's actually showing a clockwise spin, indicating that it's beneficial for me. So
okay, perfect. Okay, so that's just a quick demonstration of how the telephy actually is beneficial using Kerry's pendulums that he's trained with in the School of Biogeometry. Now, the other aspect of that is people may want to know what is the proprietary technology, if you like, that we own that has developed these products, but suffice it to say that it's based on biogeometry, which is the physics of quality, and it's about shapes and symbols and numbers and angles, and it's the combination of these and how they're put together, and then these have an effect on the electromagnetic field and that they harmonize them. Is there anything briefly you want to say about that, Kerry? It's too much to go into in terms of information for people on this talk about the design, but if is there anything else you want to say about it?
well, just maybe a brief explanation of what you mean by expressing numbers and angles, shapes, colors, and sounds. So those are all interchangeable. For instance, the note of middle C on the piano has the same resonant frequency as the color red. So if I if I measure this color red with my pendulum and get that frequency and then hit the C note on the piano, it will start to spin clockwise. So
okay,
and so there are different number qualities and there are angle qualities. So the angle of 66 degrees will assist in harmonizing electromagnetic radiation. 102.5 degrees is for Bluetooth radiation. So there are all sorts of different angles, but we also use number quality. So the number 9, and it's not just the number, but it's 9 things. So if you take 9 P's, it creates a resonance at a certain frequency as well. For water, we look to use the number 11. So we would have 11, sticks or something that would harmonize the water. And I won't go into it too much further than that. But
okay, perfect. Yeah, and these are, the I guess the devices, people look at them and think, oh, there's nothing much to them. But what is actually how they're manufactured is that the information is printed on them, and then this information is embedded in the plastic material, and it's invisible to us because it's printed in whiting, for example, so that we can't see it, and it's covered up by the logo there anyway. So this information is embedded into the device.
yes. So what it is it's actually done with a laser, and so what it is, it's a 3-dimensional construct. It actually goes beyond into 4 dimensions, but that's another story. So it's a 3-dimensional construct which is collapsed to 2 dimensions so that it can be printed into this, and it's done with the laser, and it's done in a certain process. So it has to be done in a certain order, and it has to be done from east to west, and so on and so forth. So it's a little bit esoteric, but the result is spectacular.
Okay, fantastic. So that's the telephy. We've demonstrated that the electrophy works in the same principle in terms of design and how it harmonizes, and they're designed to go on your fuse box in Ireland, your electric fuse box, and smart meters, which are being rolled out now in Ireland, more so. They've upped the rollout here, our electricity supply board. So not every house has them yet, but they are coming, and they will be using 5G eventually to transmit the information over the airwaves from the smart meter to the electricity supply companies. That's why they're putting them in, so that the meter reading man doesn't have to come around anymore, or you don't have to ring in your reading or email it or whatever to them. So yeah, they're coming unless you opt out. Okay, great. So just to sum up then, you can go to the website and you can read further there in relation to the products and how they affect the body under the test page. There's tests that have been carried out and they show the results of the effect of the products there. And also there's testimonials, and there's also a frequently asked question page, which has a lot of information. But just to say something about the test, Kerry has an image there that we can show. We all, as Kerry mentioned at the very beginning, emit frequency anyway ourselves, and the human biofield is now well discovered and talked about, and Kirlian photography has been used to photograph it and image it, and we're used to that image. And so Kerry has some photographs taken before and after the use of telephy and the effect of it on the human biofield. So we just show them now, Kerry.
So this is a picture of the human biofield, and this is using a cellular phone without any corrective device on it. And what you can see is that the biofield has a lot of holes and shredding in it, and specifically over the top of the head here, the crown chakra for those who are into chakras. And so then what happened is we put the telephy onto the phone, and we ran a test with it's called gas discharge visualization. It was developed by a Russian physicist for the Russian space program, and it is a diagnostic tool. It's a device to measure different aspects of the body, and in this case it's measuring the electromagnetic field around us, also called the biofield or the aura. And so this is without a telephy on it, and then after with the telephy. The test takes 12 minutes to run, and so you can see this is the difference that comes after 12 minutes. In particular, this hole over the crown is gone, so it's filled in nicely. And although there is still damage to the biofield, all of the absolute holes going through are rectified here, and they're starting to close up. And as I said, it takes 12 minutes to run that test, and that's a remarkable difference in 12 minutes. The same subject came a year later with the same phone, and we did that test, and it was completely filled in. So there's a cumulative benefit from using these devices.
Okay, great. So that's on the web, the test page. You can go and have a look at that and other tests that were carried out with results to examine the effects. For people that need the hard, clean facts to see results, go to the test page. So just to say something then, Kerry, about products that are on the market and how they compare and what they do or don't do in comparison to yours. So they will be the likes of shungite and or argonite, which people listening will be aware of, and many people you know, or have been recommended to use these now, like a shungite pendant for someone that's EMF sensitive, for example, or an organite pendant. So how do they compare, and what do they do compared to your products?
So, sorry, there just goes my phone again. It's distracting me. It's causing me not to.
Okay.
Okay. So yes, there are different ones. Now, shungite is a brilliant product, and it's actually a type of mineral, very high in carbon, and it's supposed to have come from a meteorite that struck in Russia back in the 1800s. And the Russians have been aware of it for a long time. In fact, Tsar Nicholas, he actually mandated that all of his troops carry shungite in their water bottles because it purifies the water. And what it is, it's something called fullerenes in there, which we can go into, but you can look up Buckminster Fuller, who is a pretty interesting character, scientist, and the fullerenes are named after him. And what they do is they absorb radiation, they absorb toxins, and we don't really know where they go because they can't find them afterwards. So there are different shungite products. This is a little shungite pyramid that we have. And if I demonstrate to you, this will actually harmonize this phone so that it's no longer putting off the vertical negative green that we talked about. So here it is with the shungite pyramid on top, and you can see that it is not putting off the vertical negative green or the deleterious frequency.
How can we see that?
I'm sorry?
How did the pendulum go? What made
It
us?
stayed neutral. It just stayed neutral. So there was nothing negative coming from the phone.
Yeah.
The problem is that you can't have this on your phone. You can't carry that around on your phone all the time. You wouldn't be able to get it in your pocket or make a call and nothing like that. Shungite does come in different formats. This is one that I wear all the time as well, and it's just beads, shungite beads. There are different grades of shungite. I have some here. It's called Elite Shungite. It's very, very light. It's very expensive, and it's very high quality. And then this is a lesser grade of shungite, but it's still very effective. Now they do make shungite plates for phones. And I've tested them and they don't work. It's the poorest quality of shungite, and they just don't work. So I don't recommend those at all. But it's good to have shungite around the house. I have it, even though my house is fully harmonized, I still have shungite here. It just makes me feel better to have it, and it's why I wear it as well. The orgonite is an interesting thing as well. It's kind of a made-up word, and it started from orgone, which was Willem Reich. He was very prominent back in the 1930s and 1940s, and he discerned that there was this frequency in the atmosphere called orgone, and that there was positive orgone and negative orgone. And he worked a lot with that, with cloud busting and all sorts of things like that. And then what he was doing was he would take organic and inorganic materials, and then he would put them in layers. And what happened then is he found that it would transmute the negative orgone to positive orgone, so that it would become beneficial for people. So using that principle, people started making something called orgonite, which is generally made from a fiberglass resin or some type of resin, and people put metal filings in there, and the good ones will actually have crystals and coils of wire in them as well. But these are tricky because they don't all come the same, and they can actually cause problems if not properly made. And as an example, I have a piece of orgonite here that somebody gave to me. And what happens with this is that it does absorb electromagnetic radiation, but then it becomes saturated and it starts to emit it. So you're actually concentrating electromagnetic radiation into that. This has been sitting outside. I keep it outside just because I don't like having it around, but I keep it for demonstrations when I'm doing shows and so on and so forth. And what I'll show you is what happens with it. So we can see I'm testing it for vertical negative green, and it is loaded with it. So that's what happens when you buy cheap.
So not a cheap one, but they're not all necessarily like that. There's some better
No,
quality ones.
yes, there are better quality ones. I would never buy anything that looks like that. You can just see it's resin with metal flakes in it,
Okay.
and it's kind of useless. But what's interesting is I'll show you quickly what happens here too. So this is my phone that has the Telefeet on it, and it will actually harmonize the orgonite. So what we can see now is it's sitting on there, and that orgonite will be harmonized by my phone now. We can see that it's just going in a neutral back and forth, so there is no negative green.
Okay.
Negative green there.
Okay. So the inconvenience of orgonite, I guess, as well, is that there is no orgonite product on the market that you're aware of that has been developed into a sticker type product to put on your phone conveniently either, is there?
No, no.
So people make them as pyramids, as pendulums to wear, pendants, etc. To wear rather. That's how they come. So there's a little inconvenience there.
Yes, and the thing about that too is very often the ones with the pendants is this type of material, and it doesn't have any crystals, it doesn't have any coil, and it has nothing to ameliorate that aspect. So again, you're concentrating it, and it is right near your heart, which is not a good thing. the orgonite pyramids too, I would like to just touch on that really briefly, because pyramids themselves, because of the shape of them, they actually have energetic qualities, and everybody knows about the pyramids in Egypt and all of the energetic qualities with that. And pyramids need to be harmonized as well, because if they come just a straight pyramid, they actually will emit vertical negative green. And so that can be ameliorated. I know that there was somebody selling orgonite at the mind-body connection, the Dublin mind-body, and she was doing it right. And so what she had is she had crystals and also wire coils in those pyramids, and so that was fine. And then what you can see here, perhaps, is that the edge, you can't really see it very well, but the edge of the pyramid, rather than it being a straight pyramid down like this, which would be problematic, the edge is slightly beveled. And so that makes it so it's not problematic any longer.
Okay,
So
okay.
beware of those.
Okay, all right. So just to say something else about those products that are on the market, because people are aware of them. And also to say that your product as it stands, and in comparison to other products that be stuck on the phone or stuck onto the Wi-Fi router, as far as you're aware, there's very few, if any, products in the world that actually harmonize the EMF radiation so that it's beneficial for us. So there's many products that actually transmute it, but there's not many or any, is there, that actually harmonize the frequency, though, so it becomes beneficial for us.
No, no. And some of them actually have create more problems than you started out with by introducing other frequencies. And specifically, a lot of them you'll see are these foil ones, and they have a hologram etched into them. Now that hologram is etched in with a laser, and there's something interesting that happens when a laser interacts with metal, and it creates another frequency called vertical infrared, which is also harmful for us. So then what happens is they're not transmuting anything, and so you have vertical negative green plus vertical infrared. So then it's a double whammy, and you don't want to deal with that. This is a very popular one, and I'll sort of cover it up so you can't read it, but it's a very popular one that's sold in Canada. They sell them in packs of 2.
It's very difficult to see what they are.
I don't want to disparage them, so I'm just covering up the name.
Yeah.
But it's just a little oval thing that goes on your phone like that.
Sure.
And
Okay.
they don't do anything whatsoever. So I've stuck that on my phone, as you can see, and I'll show you with the pendulum again, testing for vertical negative green. And it's got vertical negative green, so it's not doing anything whatsoever. So that's the danger, is people who think that they're protected and they're not. And it's a big part of why I did what I did too, because I didn't think that was right at all.
Okay, perfect, Kerry. We might just finish up there now and just recap on what we talked about. So we started off talking about harmonizing your life and what harmony and disharmony meant in frequencies. And the electrosmog that surrounds us, and then how that's been stepped up nowadays to the 5G 5th generation technology, which our communications companies are going to be using more and more going forward as the next generation technology for powering our phones, our Wi-Fi routers, all our devices, and the deleterious effects that has on the biological systems, including nature, as well as human beings. And that, these products, the range of products that Kerry has developed, have been designed to transmute this frequency. Kerry hasn't tested them on the higher frequency, which is a weaponized frequency at 60 gigahertz, because it's just not been turned up to that degree yet. But for the 5 gigahertz, which it starts out as, you've tested your products on that, and it harmonizes that frequency. And until the next wave is rolled out or it's increased, you can't test it, but you will be working with that and testing them and developing upgraded products as the frequencies increase. Is that fair to say? That's you plan to?
Yeah, so I have been testing 5G was unavailable for testing for a long time, but it became available to me publicly 2 years ago in Victoria, British Columbia. And so in the downtown of the city. And so I went to the downtown and I put my devices onto electrical poles that were powering the 5G, and it did an admirable job of harmonizing it. Actually, all I had to do was one of them, one transmitter, and it harmonized the whole downtown. So that would be an area maybe close to a kilometer square. And
Okay, it had a knock-on effect.
yes, it did.
Yeah.
And
I guess that's just an important thing to say, that it does have an effect, a field of harmonization. So the telephy on a phone, what field does it have?
so when a phone is just quiescent, what I mean by that is it's just off like that. The field is 2 meters. There's a 2 meter field around the device itself. Around the aquaphy, which is not an electromagnetic device, but there's a 1.5 meter field around aquaphy. And then when the phone is activated with a telephy on it, the field of harmonization goes to 10 meters. You can measure it out 10 meters. With a house, when you put an electrophy onto a house, the field is measurable to 25 meters. So,
Okay.
yeah.
Perfect. Okay. All right, Kerry, we'll wrap up there. Thank you everybody for listening. Please visit our website, emfx5gsolutions.ie, where you can find out more about the products, and feel free to contact us if you want any other information. And final words to you, Kerry.
Well, I wasn't expecting to have the final word, but I'll do my best. And we need to do something about the electromagnetic radiation that is assaulting us all, and it's getting worse and worse and worse. And Dr. Karim, who is my teacher, who I learned biogeometry from, it's his science, and he wrote a book called Back to a Future for Mankind. And in that book, he posited that if we don't do something about the electromagnetic radiation that we're propagating with our cell phones, with our Wi-Fi routers, with electric cars, with everything else, and we didn't mention the electric cars, so we should talk about that, we're looking at an extinction event. And he said at that point, we have about 20 years to get a grip on the EMFs. And so there's a sense of urgency with people who are trained in biogeometry to counter that, because it's for all of mankind. It's for everything that's alive. It's not just ourselves that we're interested in. And so that's an important
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting, because I guess a lot of people are thinking about the climate and how it's been changing, and we know that that's for various different reasons, or they're thinking about food shortage or quality of water, but obviously the quality of our air and the frequencies around us are a big part of the effect on the organic earth and ourselves and life. So we forget to some degree that electromagnetic frequency radiation needs to be dealt with too, as well.
Urgent. It's an urgent situation.
Yeah.
Okay. And I just want, sorry, I had to interrupt you there, but we forgot to mention about the electric cars, and that's the new thing. And by 2030, you won't be able to buy a diesel or a petrol car in Europe, in Ireland. They'll all be electric. And that's a huge, huge problem in a couple of different ways. One of them, to us, it's a real problem to sit in an electromagnetic field of that strength to us. And so we are going to start to see a lot of problems coming from electric cars. And for that, you do need an electrophy. And different cars have different requirements. Tesla is the hardest car to harmonize. I've had to use 2 of them on them. Other cars are easier. The hybrid cars, like the Tesla Prius, I don't know what you have there, but we have different hybrid vehicles here, which are gas and or petrol and electric, and they tend to be the easier ones to deal with. And
okay.
Also, just one last word on the electric cars is that the damage done from mining for the lithium, both to humans and to the environment, is much worse than anything that's being done by use of petrol or diesel fuels. So that's something to consider. And if you do have an electric car, you do want something. So I harmonize my car anyhow. It's because there are electromagnetic fields with all the electric, the seat heaters and the electric windows, and it's also an electromagnetic soup in a car. So these are admirable, do an admirable job at harmonizing your car, even if it's a
Okay.
car.
Okay. Final word.
Okay.
Drive safely, drive harmonized,
Yes.
well as communicate in a harmonized fashion. Okay, thank you very much, Kerry. We'll talk again soon
Yes.
for our next talk. Thank you everybody for listening, and bye for now.
Thanks. Bye.